Right. So anyone who's even glanced at this CA final audit syllabus knows.
Oh, yeah?
It's massive.
It's a beast.
Chapters on chapters, standards galore.
It's a lot.
It can feel like you're trying to drink from a fire hose.
I've seen so many students just get completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that's exactly why.
By the sheer amount of material.
We have 2 audit masterminds with us today.
Absolutely.
Professors from opposite ends of India who are known for making audit
North and South.
not just understandable,
Yes.
but engaging.
That's the key.
And they've got some advice on how to tackle this syllabus. And more importantly, how to actually remember what you learn.
Because rote memorization only gets you so far right.
Exactly.
Especially in a field like audit.
So let's just kick things off with something that really brings home the importance of what we're talking about.
Okay.
Imagine a scenario.
All right.
A listed company manufacturing these massive machinery parts is getting audited, and the auditor doesn't even bother to visit the company's premises.
Oh, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
You're undermining the entire purpose of an audit.
And this is where those seemingly dry standards like SQC1 and SA220 become your best friends.
Yes, they may seem like just another hurdle to clear.
Right, they seem like a checkbox.
But they're really the backbone of ensuring quality and reliability in every audit.
So SQC1
So think of SQC1,
focuses on quality control within audit firms.
which focuses on quality control within audit firms.
So it's like setting the stage for a solid audit.
As setting the stage for a solid audit.
Like building a house on a strong foundation.
It's like building a house on a strong foundation.
And one key element within SQC1.
And one key element within SQC1.
That's often overlooked, especially by students.
That's often overlooked, especially by students.
Is the documentation.
Is the documentation aspect.
Mastering documentation.
Mastering documentation, according to SQC1, is crucial not just for acing the exam, but for your entire career.
So it's not just about ticking boxes.
It's not just about ticking boxes.
It's about understanding the why behind each step.
Precisely.
Now, SA220 takes that foundation and applies it to the actual audit process.
Takes that foundation and applies it to the actual audit process.
It ensures every step is conducted with due care.
With due care.
And diligence.
And diligence, preventing those auditor never visited scenarios we just talked about.
So these standards are like our audit guardrails.
Exactly.
Keeping things on track.
And as future auditors, you'll be the ones upholding these standards, ensuring the integrity of financial reporting.
Now let's talk about some real-world risks that auditors need to be aware of.
Okay.
Those red flags.
Yes.
They could signal trouble brewing beneath the surface.
One that immediately springs to mind is this pressure on companies to meet these aggressive financial forecasts.
Oh yeah, we all love a good growth story.
We all love a good growth story.
But auditors need to be wary.
But auditors need to be wary.
When management might be tempted to...
When management might be tempted to, let's just say, enhance the numbers to meet those expectations.
Enhance, okay.
Enhance, yeah.
Low morale among senior management.
Oh.
That's a red flag I hadn't considered before.
Yeah.
How does that factor into an auditor's assessment?
Well, you know, it can be quite revealing, actually.
Okay.
Low morale can sometimes point to a culture where controls might be lax or overridden.
Yeah.
Increasing the risk of errors or worse, intentional manipulation.
Intentional.
It's a subtle but important signal to pay attention to.
So it's not just about the numbers. It's about understanding the human dynamics at play.
Absolutely. And this is where understanding the concept of management override of controls becomes crucial.
Okay.
Now, you've already encountered SA240,
Right.
which deals with fraud in an audit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, SA240 specifically highlights this risk of management override, emphasizing that even seemingly robust controls can be bypassed by those at the top.
That's a sobering thought.
It is.
It really highlights the importance of an auditor's professional skepticism.
Precisely. You can't simply take things at face value.
Right.
You need to constantly be questioning, probing, and looking for those subtle clues that might point to something amiss.
So we often think of audits as a one-on-one auditor versus company scenario.
Auditor versus company.
But what happens when you have multiple auditors working together?
Yeah.
Do they always see eye to eye?
That's a great question, and it brings us to the fascinating and sometimes tricky world of joint audits.
Okay.
So imagine a scenario with 3 joint auditors working on the same engagement.
Sorry.
One of them uncovers what they believe to be material misstatements.
Okay.
Serious enough to potentially turn a reported profit into a significant loss.
Wow.
But the other 2 auditors disagree with this assessment. accepting management's explanations.
That creates quite the dilemma.
It does.
How do you navigate a situation like that?
Well, it all boils down to understanding that joint auditors have joint and several responsibilities.
Yep.
They must collaborate, discuss their findings openly, and try to reach a consensus. If they can't agree, it could lead to a qualified or even an adverse opinion in the audit report.
So it's like this high-stakes balancing act.
It is.
Ensuring both collaboration and independent judgment.
Precisely. And this is where those soft skills like communication and conflict resolution become as important as your technical knowledge.
This reminds me of a real-world example that highlights the need for a deep understanding of the business being audited.
Yes.
Remember the case of M&I Builders?
Yes, I do.
The auditor there relied too heavily on management's assertions.
They did.
And failed to grasp the nuances of the company's operations.
Yes, and unfortunately that led to them violating SA 300, which deals with audit planning.
Right?
You see, they didn't adequately assess the risks associated with the company's specific operations. This lack of understanding led to insufficient audit procedures, ultimately impacting the reliability of their opinion.
So it's not just about blindly following procedures.
It's not just about blindly following procedures.
It's about applying those procedures intelligently.
It's about applying those procedures intelligently.
Based on a thorough understanding.
Based on a thorough understanding.
Of the business context.
Of the business context. And that's what sets apart a truly competent auditor from someone just going through the motions. You've got to be able to connect the dots, see the bigger picture, and tailor your approach accordingly.
It sounds like having a solid grasp of internal control is crucial in these situations.
You're absolutely right. You've already studied internal control frameworks.
Yeah.
But now it's time to look at it from a practical perspective. Imagine you're auditing a company with weak internal controls.
Okay.
How would you adapt your audit approach to address those weaknesses?
Right.
This is where your knowledge of SA 315, which deals with risk assessment, becomes invaluable.
So it's about going beyond the textbook definitions and thinking critically about how these concepts play out in the real world.
Precisely. And that's what will truly prepare you, not just for the CA final exam, but for a successful career in audit.
I'm already starting to feel like I'm piecing together the audit puzzle.
That's the spirit.
Right. Wow.
It's all about connecting those seemingly disparate concepts and building a holistic understanding of how audit works in practice.
And speaking of practical application, let's not forget the concept of going concern.
Yes.
Which can make or break a company's financial statements.
Absolutely. As auditors, you need to assess whether there are any material uncertainties that could cast doubt on the entity's ability to continue operating in the foreseeable future.
So it's like being a financial detective.
Exactly.
Looking for clues that might point to a company's long-term prospects.
You'll be analyzing financial ratios, debt covenants, industry trends, anything that could shed light on the company's viability as a going concern.
And this is where SA 570 comes in handy.
Precisely.
Or the standard that specifically addresses.
It provides the framework and guidance for auditors to navigate these complex assessments and form well-founded conclusions.
Now, I know what our listeners might be thinking at this point.
How
am I supposed to remember all of this?
Right.
It's like trying to climb a mountain of information.
I understand the feeling. That's why rote memorization won't cut it.
Right.
It's about developing a deep understanding of the underlying principles and concepts.
Okay.
Think of it like learning a new language.
Right.
You don't just memorize words, you learn the grammar and syntax.
Right.
Which allows you to construct meaningful sentences.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
But are there any practical tips or techniques our professors can share?
Absolutely.
To help make this process a little less daunting.
One technique that's always worked for me is mnemonics.
Mnemonics.
Those memory aids that turn complex information into catchy phrases or acronyms.
I love those.
You do.
They're like little mental shortcuts that help you remember key concepts.
Exactly. For instance, to remember the elements of quality control as per SQC1.
Yeah.
You could use the acronym HELP ME with each letter representing a crucial element.
I'm intrigued.
You are.
So H for
human resources.
Okay.
E for ethical requirements.
Okay.
L for leadership responsibilities.
Got it.
P for engagement performance, and ME for monitoring.
Wow, that's actually quite helpful. I wish I had known that trick back when I was studying for my CA final.
I know, right?
Another powerful technique is using real-world examples.
Real-world examples.
It's much easier to remember a concept
It is.
when you can relate it to a practical scenario.
Exactly. So instead of just memorizing the definition of management override of controls,
Yeah,
think about the example we discussed earlier with the aggressive financial forecast.
right.
Visualize that scenario and how it could play out in a real company. It makes it much more memorable.
It's like watching a financial thriller unfold. And finally, don't underestimate the power of connecting concepts to broader business principles.
Broader business principles.
Auditing isn't just a technical exercise.
It's not.
It's about ensuring the integrity and transparency of financial information.
It is.
So instead of just seeing individual standards in isolation,
Yes.
we should think about how they all contribute to the overarching goal
The overarching goal.
of reliable financial reporting.
Precisely when you understand the why behind the what, you're not just memorizing rules, you're developing a deep understanding of the principles that govern the audit profession.
Right.
And that's what will truly set you apart as a competent and ethical auditor.
This has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
But before we move on, I want to make sure we address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
The sheer vastness of this CA final audit syllabus.
Yeah.
I can almost hear our listeners' hearts pounding just thinking about it.
I know.
It's enough to make anyone reach for the stress ball.
I completely understand. It can feel like trying to climb Mount Everest. But remember, every journey starts with a single step. And that's where the concept of audit sampling comes in.
Because let's be real, you can't possibly examine every single transaction and document.
You just can't.
That's where SA 530 comes in.
SA 530.
It provides a framework for auditors to make judgments about which areas to examine in detail.
Right.
So instead of drowning in a sea of data,
Yes.
you're using a life raft to navigate to the most important areas.
Exactly. And this principle applies not just during the exam, but throughout your professional life as an auditor. It's about being efficient and effective with your time and resources.
So it's all about working smarter, not harder.
Working smarter, not harder. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, speaking of working smarter, not harder,
Yeah.
let's talk about retaining all this information.
Okay.
It's one thing to grasp these concepts in the moment,
Yeah.
but how do we ensure they stick with us?
Right.
Especially when we're dealing with this mountain of chapters and standards.
Because cramming might get you through the exam, but what about applying this knowledge in the real world?
Absolutely. And that's where those memory techniques we discussed come into play.
Right.
Mnemonics, real-world examples, connecting concepts to broader business principles.
Yeah.
These aren't just exam tricks. They're tools that will serve you well throughout your career.
It's like building a mental framework.
It is a lattice work that supports all the individual pieces of knowledge.
And that framework is what allows you to adapt to new situations, analyze complex problems, and make informed decisions.
Precisely. Remember, audit isn't a static field. It's constantly evolving with new technologies and challenges emerging all the time.
Speaking of evolving, how do you think the role of an auditor will change in this digital age? With technologies like AI and blockchain transforming the landscape of financial reporting?
That's an excellent question. It's a topic we could spend an entire episode discussing.
Right.
But in a nutshell, I believe these technologies will both challenge and empower auditors. On the one hand, AI can automate many routine audit tasks, freeing up auditors to focus on more complex and judgment-based areas.
Okay.
Blockchain, with its inherent transparency and immutability, can enhance the reliability of data and streamline audit procedures.
So it's not about replacing auditors, but augmenting their capabilities.
Precisely. But on the other hand,
Okay.
these technologies also introduce new risks and complexities.
Oh.
Auditors will need to develop new skills and expertise to effectively audit AI systems and blockchain-based transactions.
Wow.
They'll need to understand the algorithms, the data integrity issues, and the potential vulnerabilities of these systems.
So it's a call to action for all aspiring auditors.
It is.
Embrace lifelong learning, stay ahead of the curve,
Stay ahead of the curve.
and adapt to the changing technological landscape.
Absolutely. The future of audit is both exciting and demanding.
Right.
Those who embrace this challenge will find themselves at the forefront of a dynamic and rewarding profession.
This brings us back to our initial discussion about conquering that daunting CA final audit syllabus.
Yes, it does.
I know it can seem overwhelming, but with the right approach, the right mindset, and the right tools, you can not only pass the exam,
Yes.
but truly master the art and science of audit.
And remember, you're not alone on this journey.
Right.
Your professors, your peers, and even seasoned professionals are here to guide and support you. Don't hesitate to ask questions, seek advice, and learn from the experiences of others.
Collaboration and knowledge sharing are essential in this field.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap up, is there any final piece of advice our esteemed professors would like to leave our listeners with? What's the one thing they wish they'd known when they were starting out on their audit journeys?
I'll start looking back. The one thing I wish I'd focused on more is developing strong analytical and critical thinking skills.
Okay.
You see, audit isn't just about following a set of procedures. It's about understanding the why behind the what, connecting the dots,
Right.
and seeing the bigger picture.
So it's about going beyond the technical and tapping into that inquisitive problem-solving side.
Exactly. Those skills will serve you well not just in audit, but in every aspect of your professional life.
I completely agree. Curiosity, adaptability, and a willingness to challenge assumptions are essential qualities for success in any field.
They are.
What about you, Professor? What's your pearl of wisdom for our aspiring auditors?
My advice would be to never underestimate the power of communication.
Okay.
Audit involves constant interaction with clients, colleagues, regulators,
Yeah.
and other stakeholders. Being able to clearly articulate your findings, explain complex concepts in a simple way, and build strong relationships is crucial.
This is not just about being a numbers whiz, it's about being a people person too.
Precisely. Remember, audit is a people business.
Yeah.
It's about building trust, ensuring accountability, and ultimately contributing to a more transparent and reliable financial system.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of CA Final Audit.
It has.
I feel like we've not only uncovered valuable insights and practical tips, but we've also ignited a spark of curiosity and excitement for this fascinating profession.
And that's what it's all about.
Right.
Remember, this isn't just about passing an exam.
Yeah.
It's about embarking on a lifelong journey of learning, growth, and contribution.
Well said. A huge thank you to our esteemed professors for sharing their wisdom and experience.
Always a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we wish you the very best on your CA Final journey.
We do.
Remember, approach this challenge with curiosity. Embrace the power of critical thinking and never stop learning.
Never stop learning.
The world of audit awaits you. So much ground covered today. Quality control and risk assessment.
Yeah.
Joint audits, the evolving landscape of the profession.
It's a lot.
What stands out to you as the most crucial takeaway for our listeners, especially those gearing up for that CA Final Audit exam?
I think for me, it all boils down to developing that critical thinking mindset.
Okay.
The exam isn't just about, regurgitating facts and figures.
Sure.
It's about applying your knowledge to real-world scenarios, analyzing complex situations, forming well-supported opinions.
So it's about thinking like an auditor, not just memorizing like a student.
Exactly. And that skill, that ability to think critically and analytically, will be invaluable throughout your careers, not just during the exam.
Because the world of audit is constantly throwing curveballs, right?
It is.
New regulations, emerging technologies,
all the time.
ever-evolving business models.
Precisely, to thrive in this dynamic environment, you need to be adaptable, inquisitive, and always eager to learn. The CA Final Exam is just the first step on a lifelong journey of professional development.
Well said, and I think that's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
A huge thank you to our esteemed professors for sharing their invaluable insights and advice.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
And to our listeners,
Yes,
best of luck on your CA Final journey.
absolutely.
Remember, this is more than just an exam. It's a gateway to a challenging and rewarding profession
Yes, it is.
that plays a vital role in shaping the financial world.
Absolutely.
And on that note,
Yes.
this has been the Deep Dive,